with ZipRecruiter.
After attending the funeral of a Texas child who passed away from the measles this weekend, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now throwing his support behind the vaccine.
Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. now advocating for the measles vaccine in his most direct statement yet, while visiting the epicenter of the ongoing measles outbreak. The U.S. has now seen more than 600 confirmed measles cases across 21 states this year. That's double the number of cases seen during all of last year and growing quickly. Now, Kennedy, who's been highly skeptical of the measles vaccine as recently as last month, now encouraging Americans to get the jab, releasing a statement saying the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles is the MMR vaccine.
ABC's Andrew Dimbert. At least 20 people are dead after the strong storms tore across the Midwest and South, including tornadoes and flash floods. The threat remains for days to come due to rising rivers. ABC's Ginger Z has more.
The Ohio River, which is right now at the highest level in 7 years. What happens is rain falls and then it takes time to get through those creeks and different waterways, and then it'll start to rise in some of the bigger rivers. Thankfully, the Mississippi was very low, so it had a lot of rise to go.
A week-long boycott of Walmart stores nationwide began today.
Citing a workforce where a majority don't have college degrees, Walmart announces it's working with other leading employers through a Skills First workforce initiative, giving a grant to create a new website, skillsfirst.org, listing requirements for 9 of the most common U.S. jobs to help job seekers and employers.
ABC's Chuck Sievertson, Michelle Franz, and ABC News.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere, anytime. Be prepared with quick-acting Primatene Mist. Clinically proven to open airways quickly. It's the #1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Use as directed.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
Ah, spring. That time of year when you turn up the heat in the morning and the air conditioner in the afternoon. If you're constantly adjusting your thermostat just to stay comfortable, it might be time to talk insulation. You see, today's insulation...
4:05 now at News Talk KVNU, and I'm Will Feelright with your news and weather this hour as we've had sunny skies, temperatures in the mid-60s today, and looking ahead, it looks like it's only going to get better as we work our way towards next weekend. Well, one person died and 2 others were injured after a wrong-way crash happened in the northbound lanes of I-15 yesterday afternoon. Now, the Utah Highway Patrol says the crash occurred at around 12:30 when a driver in a blue Toyota Camry was heading east in the westbound lanes of I-80 before turning on to the northbound lanes of I-15. Now, at around 700 south, that driver collided with an Audi that was heading north. They also sideswiped a gray Hyundai driving north. Now, the driver of the Audi was transported to a local hospital and is reported to be stable, while the driver of the Hyundai experienced only minor injuries but was also taken to the hospital, while the wrong-way driver was pronounced dead at the scene. Oh, a sad story out of Emery County where 2 volunteer firefighters lost everything in their own house fire. The fire had ripped through Scott and Kyla McClary's home back on March 31st. Now, the 2 who serve as the town's volunteer fire chief and assistant fire chief are not only dealing with the loss of their home, but also the heartbreak of losing 2 of their 4 dogs in the fire. Now, Kyla said that the fire was sparked by a clothes dryer, an often overlooked danger in many homes. Now, the couple is also urging everyone to have smoke detectors in their homes. Kyla said the incident also highlighted the need for more volunteer firefighters in their town. She noted how the Emery Volunteer Fire Department is a small department that covers a stretch of I-70 and primarily deal with auto accidents and grass and brush fires. Now, in total, the McClary's house suffered around $150,000 in damage. A GoFundMe account has been set up to help the 2 get back on their feet. And a man with several felony warrants was detained by U.S. Marshals on Friday after being found hiding in a crawl space in a Salt Lake City residence. Taylorsville police said they had learned of several no-bail warrants recently issued for 62-year-old Guy William Fenstermaker back on March 20th. Now, that same day, an officer spotted a black Ford F-150 truck that Fenstermaker was believed to be driving and attempted to conduct a traffic stop, but Fenstermaker reportedly fled at a high speed and was not immediately located. Now, that vehicle was later tracked to a residence, and on April 1st, police received a tip that Fenstermaker was at that residence in Salt Lake City. Now, over several days, officers observed him entering and exiting the home. On Friday, the U.S. Marshals Service Violent Fugitive Apprehension Strike Team launched an operation and apprehended Fenstermaker. He was found. He had climbed up into a crawl space to try to hide from law enforcement. He became combative with officers as they were trying to arrest him, but was eventually taken into custody. Well, we've enjoyed temperatures in the mid-60s, and it's going to warm up even more as we work towards Thursday and Friday. As mostly sunny skies through the rest of the afternoon. We will see a few clouds overnight tonight and into tomorrow, as we have a small chance of some shower activity, only 20%. Overall, we'll see hopefully some sunshine again tomorrow. Temperatures around 63. That's going to be the same forecast for Wednesday with mostly sunny skies. Thursday and Friday is when we get into the 70s. And looks like by Friday, mid-70s. Start to almost feel like summer here in northern Utah. And news and weather this hour brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. As you start to take those blankets off of bedding, don't just put them away. Take them into Mount Logan Laundry and clean them up before you storm away for the summer months. Mount Logan Laundry, they can save you $20 to $30 compared to dry cleaning. It's the cleanest spot in town. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update.
Ah, spring. That time of year when you turn up the heat in the morning and the air conditioner in the afternoon. If you're constantly adjusting your thermostat just to stay comfortable, it might be time to talk insulation. You see, today's insulation is superior to what they used to put in homes. Not only does it help regulate the temperature inside, but it can also slash your energy bills. Or maybe you just need to insulate your attic, garage, or a specific room? No problem. Call Cardall's Insulation, 755-5012. That's 755-5012.
Reporting the news that matters to you. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, your number one radio station for news and talk.
Building a home is one of life's biggest investments. You want it done the right way, the honest way. Edson Builders has teamed up with Innovative Home Finishes, two of Cache Valley's best, to give you a better home building experience. No cookie cutter designs, no cutting corners, just exceptional homes built exactly the way you want. And right now, you may qualify for a $20,000 first-time home builder incentive. Call 232-2680. That's 232-2680, or visit edsonbuilders.com.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice, and I'm here with Barbara. Barbara, how did you become acquainted with Primrose?
I had been trying to get another company to come and help me, and I had waited about 2 weeks, and I needed a bath. My neighbor suggested that she would make a few phone calls, and that very afternoon, Mark Stokes was sitting in my front room, and he said, "What do you need?"
Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency, so we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is a beautiful Monday afternoon here in Cache Valley. Almost 65 degrees at 4:12 in the afternoon. Going to get a little warmer, too. That doesn't mean that the freezing temperatures are over. It's Utah, of course, which means, we can have frost up until June. But starting to feel a little bit like planting some of the garden maybe a little early this year. We'll see. But yeah, it's nice outside. Coming up on the show today, a lot to talk about. Big protests over the weekend drawing thousands to the Capitol, filling Capitol Hill outside the state Capitol building there. These hands-off protests happened all throughout the United States, and there was a smaller one here in Cache Valley, but the scenes from Capitol Hill, I don't think that I've seen anything like this. And the title of the protests, Hands Off, and it's a reference to opposition to President Trump's policies and the involvement of billionaire Elon Musk in government. And the president has said Elon Musk will be stepping back. There has been, some controversy around an election in another state that he got very involved in that didn't go his way, and people now accusing him of actually costing a Republican Supreme Court justice the job by getting involved and offering checks for $1 million for people to vote. That didn't go well with locals. Either way, it's been a tumultuous couple of months for the president's administration in a lot of different ways. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure what these protests specifically are asking for. But again, a crowd size at the Capitol this weekend that we've never seen in Utah before. We'll talk about some of the reaction to it, how lawmakers are reacting, the governor as well. Governor Cox, of course, just days into a diplomatic trip to Canada with some lawmakers and governors of other states who trade a lot with Canada. And Utah, of course, as I mentioned here on the show, also depends a lot. About 30% of our international tourism in the summertime especially comes from Canada. And Canada's a little irritated with us right now. And so the governor, because of Trump's tariffs and the trade war it sparked, some of the rhetoric around Canada becoming the 51st state, which has angered Canadians. It reports that future booking of plane tickets from Canada to the U.S. have dropped off about 80% this year compared to last year. The governor's concerned, and he and other governors that do a lot of trade with Canada. By the way, I didn't know this, but Canada is our second biggest international trade country. The governor is off to Canada, and we'll get to some of the reports on some of the discussions that have happened so far. But it's, like I say, exciting times, to say the least. Coming up later on in the show, we'll also hear from the Cache Valley parents of one of the contestants of ABC's The Bachelor. KVNU and CacheValleyDaily.com's Eric Franson had a chance to sit down with a contestant who became a finalist on season 29 of The Bachelor on ABC, Letitia Gar, and talk a little bit with her family about what the whole experience was like. Get a chance to go behind the scenes of these shows, these reality shows that are filmed in advance and then aired in weekly episodic network television. And Letitia, who is also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, talks a little bit about that as well, being LDS and setting some boundaries very early on with the showrunners and producers that occasionally caused some disagreement, but she said she didn't back down, and they were accommodating. So that interview coming up in hour 2 of today's show. Again, KVNU and CacheValleyDaily.com's Eric Franson had a chance to sit down and talk with the Gar family, and some insight from Letitia as well on what the whole Bachelor experience was like. So that's coming up in hour 2 of today's show. Today on Capitol Hill, a big celebration of late and former Congresswoman Mia Love. If you'd like to see more about this, the Salt Lake Tribune and Deseret News both have some great photos, some very sad photos as well of her sons as pallbearers, things like that. But a lot of discussion around the state around Mia Love. She was an interesting political figure. She came on scene as in the Tea Party era as a Tea Party hero. She caught a lot of flack. I remember there was an interview she did with a Salt Lake City radio station in which she mentioned defunding libraries. This was way back in 2012. And she was asked for details on that, and then it kind of became a big word salad. Former Attorney General Mark Shurtleff ended his political aspirations, not his political career. Unfortunately, his scandal with John Swallow did that. But former Attorney General Mark Shurtleff at the time was planning to run for Senate, U.S. Senate, to replace Orrin Hatch. Mitt Romney, of course, was the one who ended up doing that. But Shurtleff got himself in some trouble and got slapped down a little bit by Utah GOP delegates who were a little more moderate at the time when he called Mia Love a, quote, token candidate, referencing her race. She was black. That is how her career started. Over the years, her time in Congress, winning once, losing to Democrat Ben McAdams, then winning again. And then she spent some time as a contributor to Fox News, to CNN. She wrote some books, and she became an activist, still political, but more of a civics and civility activist. Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson spoke at the memorial ceremony today as she was remembered and celebrated. And she said, so Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson and former Congresswoman, now late Mia Love, who passed away from brain cancer just a couple of weeks ago, Lieutenant Governor said, on this earth, Mia was a powerful force of good. She used her influence to spread her faith in America, uplift and build those around her, always believing that we are stronger and better together. I will miss her. We will all miss her. She lives in her children and grandchild. She lives in the heart and memory of her husband and every person she loved. And she lives in her friends in any bold or courageous action we take. She died March 23rd after what was a 3-year battle with brain cancer. She was only 49 years old. Love, the daughter of Haitian immigrants and the first black Republican woman elected to Congress. She served in the House from 2015 to 19 and was previously mayor of Saratoga Springs and served on the city council before that. And she talked a lot about her parents fleeing the oppressive regime in Haiti. With she liked to tell the story. They had $10 US in their pocket. They ended up in Brooklyn, New York, and Mia Love was born there, December 6, 1975. After being able to save up some money from working and things like that, and resettling through the refugee program, they were able to move to Connecticut, and Mia said she immediately adopted a love for theater and never once thought of herself as a politician. But then she ended up getting in there. After she lost her 2018 reelection bid, her husband, Jason Love, said at the memorial ceremony today that there was more time for family, and in 2022, they went to Puerto Rico on a vacation. And it was a few months after the trip that former Congresswoman and now late Mia Love began suffering migraine headaches. She was diagnosed with a very aggressive type of brain cancer. And it was several weeks ago, her family announced via her Twitter account that the cancer was no longer responding to treatment. So Elder Ronald Rasband, a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, talked a little bit about, he was also, by the way, Mia Love's husband's mission president when he went on a mission years and years ago. He knew Mia, and he talked about her role as a faith leader and spreading good and civility around the world. Said, I want you to know that I prayed with all the fervor of my being for her life. I went as close as a person could to ever demanding it. And Mia always seemed so positive and bright to me, and I'm mourning who I knew and who I will miss, and it was the life that she led. So her husband said she fought valiantly and was never discouraged, even up until her final day, just happy to be on the planet and alive. So remembering former Congresswoman, now late Mia Love, who passed away March 23rd, after a 3-year battle with brain cancer, and some photos, again, via the Deseret News and the Salt Lake Tribune, of the funeral services and more today in Salt Lake City. And, Yeah, just she was a very, very, very sincere person. I'll put it that way. And that, unfortunately, in politics these days can be kind of a rare thing. It shouldn't be a rare thing, but it very much can be a rare thing. So Mia Love will be missed. Check it out. I've linked to some of the coverage and, again, photo books that have been posted of the memorial services today on our Facebook page. And we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
Don't let concerns about today's events derail your long-term financial strategy. Edward Jones Financial Advisors can help work with you to understand today's financial landscape and how to be positioned for the long term. Edward Jones can give you the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Get started by calling one of the 11 Edward Jones locations in Cache Valley. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
We are talking with Jeff at Daryl's Appliance. Why does Northern Utah choose Daryl's when they need to repair their appliances?
Our customers trust us to get the job done right. We have been repairing appliances for over 52 years. We also have our Under One Roof loyalty program where we discount the trip charge when you decide to buy new instead of the repair. Plus, our service calls and parts are guaranteed. Daryl's West on Airport Road, open till 6 p.m. on weekdays and 5 on Saturdays.
Water getting inside your home? Driveway cracking? Your deck need cleaning or sealing? Hey, Gary Sullivan here from At Home with Gary Sullivan. I can help you with those home improvement projects each weekend right here. In fact, we'll take your calls about your home issues and give you solutions. We'll tell you how to fix it, what to use, and where to get it. We'll also have expert guests to help you with your projects. Hope you can join us this weekend right here on At Home with Gary Sullivan.
Saturday nights at 7 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
I spend a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain, sleet, and mud. In 95, I helped tow your moving trailer. In 05, I helped you get out of a ditch. Yeah, I know I'm a bit rusty, and sadly in 09, it was sparks from me, your handy chains, dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Sparks from dragging chains can start a wildfire. Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. I don't know what they were asking for. I'm not sure I even fully understand the message they're sending, although the title of the protests, I guess, makes it pretty clear. Nationwide hands-off protests taking place on Saturday over the weekend around the country, everywhere here in Utah, from Moab to Logan. There were protests, this hands-off movement, organized protests around the country protesting President Donald Trump's policy, specifically immigration policy and cuts to Social Security and Medicaid, and closing offices, shutting down the phone systems and more. That seems to be where they're coming from. But the reason this is noteworthy, the protests aren't noteworthy. You know that the left is going to do that. Especially with a president being so aggressive in his first few months, even has a few Republicans in the Senate skittish, especially over the tariffs and the trade war that it has sparked. But again, protests from the party who lost the election, or the side of the political aisle that lost the election, it happens every time. What was noteworthy about this is what happened in Salt Lake for a couple of reasons. One, it's the first time that I've seen a Utah State senator or Utah State representative in general go this viral. It was State Senator Nate Blauen, a Democrat from Salt Lake City, posted a video, just a panoramic sweep of the Capitol Hill on Saturday, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. I don't think we've ever seen, I've never seen a number of people at one single event on Capitol Hill in my life. It was huge, and because of that, and because it's Utah, of course, conservative red state, it caught the attention of some pretty popular social media influencers, and they shared State Senator Blauen's video. By the end of Saturday, he had about 105,000 likes and about 22,000 reshares on Twitter. I don't know what we call them now that it's not Twitter anymore. It's X. They used to be retweets. Now, I don't know, but it's always going to be Twitter to me. Anyway, that video went viral. Here in Logan, there was a protest. It was much smaller, obviously, but what it means, I don't know. It's interesting to see this happening in Utah. I get that, but I totally aside from all of this, and I'm pointing at both left and right on this, but one of my issues with protests in general, I don't like when people say, they don't do any good. A lot of change has happened in the United States from young people, especially protesting. Students in our lifetimes, some of you listening old enough to remember Kent State and the protests of the Vietnam War, they did change things. There were, some listening might remember protests Selma, Alabama, and more during the Civil Rights era. The protests can draw attention and change policy in the world. So I'm a fan of protests, and also sometimes it's all you have. So I get it. And again, whether it's coming from the conservative side, we had okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't get the truck rallies and the boat rallies. I don't understand. I think you're missing the point of protest, which is to draw media attention. That's the secret of protest, is to get people paying attention to your cause. And when you're driving up and down State Street with Trump flags on your trucks, I don't think you're attracting the right kind of attention for your cause. So there are bad protests. I'm not defending them all. But when people say they don't do anything, I completely disagree. But one of my problems with modern protests, like the truck rallies for Trump, there was a boater rally in Florida once. I can't think of a bigger waste of time than driving your boats around a lake with flags on them, because you're not even really you're going to attract some maybe tourist photos. You're not going to attract the media, and that defeats the purpose of organizing a large protest. The one in Salt Lake over Saturday, that's a successful protest. Whether you agree with the cause or not, beside the point, that's a successful protest. It got national attention because it was Utah and Salt Lake. And again, just photos and videos shared all over social media of, you can't see a patch of grass on the state Capitol Hill, the entire hill. And the line of cars parked around the cap, it was more than during the legislative session. It absolutely exactly what you want your protest to do, right? During the Biden administration, there were some successful protests by conservatives who filled the Capitol Mall once. I remember, I think it was the first year of the Biden administration, conservative organizers put together a protest, and they filled the Capitol Mall in D.C. That gets attention. But here's my problem with modern protests. There isn't an ask. What are you asking for? What is it you want to have happen? And there doesn't seem to be. And I really feel like this is a modern thing. And by modern, I mean maybe the last 10, 15, 20 years. But remember Occupy Wall Street? It was huge, right? It was all the media talked about for weeks. And they were occupying these parks to protest austerity and cuts to social services that most negatively impact the poor. And it was a message I think a lot of people could get behind. And then they just stayed at the parks, and no one knew why. And then eventually cities had to come along and say, look, this is a public health concern. You can't just live here at this park months later. And they refused, and there were fights with police, and tear gas was lobbed into crowds. And the entire time, I think everyone watching, myself included, who was sympathetic at first to their message, is wondering, what's the point now? What are you doing now? and they couldn't answer. If you're going to protest, sometimes I wonder if people are just so angry and pent up and feeling frustrated and maybe even powerless in the face of our money-dominated politics and unresponsive political parties. I wonder sometimes if it's just an act of lashing out. Because sometimes, like on Saturday, I'm happy for the organizers. You did everything you set out to do. You attracted national attention. People are still talking about it and sharing video from it today, and it's noteworthy, and that's a good protest. But what were you asking for? No one knows. And if you read through the coverage in the Salt Lake Tribune, Deseret News, even some local coverage around the Wasatch Front and smaller outlets about the Salt Lake City protest, they mention its size, which was impressive. They mention that it got a lot of attention and went viral online, on Twitter at least, and Instagram a bit. But nowhere can you figure out what exactly they're asking for. And I remember thinking this when some conservative groups organized, big protests during the Biden administration. Well, what are you asking for? You've got to be clear. Anyway, I'll get off my little soapbox. Kids these days, it's great they think they can change the world, and sometimes they can, and we shouldn't discourage that. But you've got to have an ask so people know what it is you're trying to do. So, and as for you climate protesters blocking freeways, I get it. You're concerned, and that's a great way to get attention, but you're just annoying people. That works against your cause. Find a more productive way to protest. On the other side, a still very powerful, at least in Utah County and legislative circles, conservative group is urging lawmakers to override one of Governor Cox's vetoes, specifically a veto that would allow the state to pay vendors in bars of gold. We'll talk about where the Utah Eagle Forum is coming from and how lawmakers are responding right after this look at the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. 15 new temples were announced by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints during the final session of the Faith's General Conference yesterday. The announcement was made by President Russell M. Nelson and included new temples to be built in Spanish Fork, Utah, and also Caldwell, Idaho, along with Flagstaff, Arizona, Rapid City, South Dakota, Greenville, South Carolina, Norfolk, Virginia, and in the countries of Australia, the Philippines, Nigeria, Portugal, Brazil, Uruguay, Peru, and Mexico. Now, that brings now the total 382 temples that are in operation, under construction, or have previously been announced. And a celebration is underway that dates back to the early 1970s. It's known as the Week of the Young Child, and it's going on at Utah State University, and not only campus-wide, but also at their other facilities throughout the state. Now, the activities and celebrations continue through Friday. There are 6 early childhood programs within the M. Eccles Jones College of Education and Human Services, which reach children within the USU community. Now, these programs serve about 10,000 young children every year. Now, hosting events this week on the Logan campus include the Sound Beginnings Edith Bowen Lab School, ASSERT, the Child Development Lab, the Dolores Dorr Eccles Center for Early Child Care and Education, and they care about child care. Now, altogether, the activities will continue through this week and culminate on Friday at 10 a.m. when there will be a children's parade on the Logan campus, which will include children and families who have been served by USU's early childhood programs. And with it being springtime in northern Utah, birds are starting to hatch, and some hatchlings may end up leaving the nest early. Now, the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources has a few tips for people who find baby birds while going for a walk. Baby birds on the ground during this time of year are common, and many birds are hatching and often leave the nest before they're able to fly. Some ended up getting blown out of their nest by springtime windstorms. Some of the most common babies that you'll find in this area are robins and swallows. Now, DWR says that if a bird is small and featherless, it's best to place it back in its nest. If someone can't find the nest, then it's best to put the bird on a branch where it's safely out of the reach of dogs and cats. Now, officials note that most birds do not have a good sense of smell, so when a baby bird is picked up, its parents won't even know that you've handled it. Now, they do note, though, never take a bird home, as most birds are protected by state and federal laws, and it is against Utah law to possess wild animals without a special permit. Now, if the bird is bigger and hopping around and has feathers, then chances are that it's a fledgling and is just learning to fly, and it's best to leave them alone. Well, sunny weather continuing through the rest of the afternoon as we've had temperatures in the mid-60s today. Tonight, a few clouds overnight into tomorrow. Could bring a raindrop or two, but doesn't look like we're going to see any major shower activity. Tomorrow we'll see temperatures back into the low 60s, and then more sunny weather for Wednesday. Temperatures around 63, 70s coming for Thursday, and 75 with more sunny weather on Friday. And news and weather this hour brought to you by Quality First Insurance. If you're confused about coverages for your employee benefit package, contact Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance at 752-0101. And I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News Update.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. Tariffs rattling markets worldwide and the U.S. adding to losses from last week. Adding to the pressure, President Trump vowing an additional 50% hike on China goods after China issued reciprocal tariffs on the U.S. And a growing backlash from lawmakers is growing, including Republicans saying a trade war is bad for the U.S. They're poised to support a bipartisan bill in the Senate to limit the president's tariff powers. And Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska now vowing legislation in the House. ABC's Alex Brachet has more.
Speaker Johnson today was asked by R.J. O'Brien if he agrees with the Bacon legislation. He said Congress will weigh in on it, but the president, with the administration in tandem, you have to give the president the latitude and a runway. That's also something that we've heard from Republican senators. It seems like the majority are saying right now it's a wait-and-see game.
This is ABC News.
Hi, I'm Wendy, co-founder of Bell Sculpt. I know what it's like to feel uncomfortable in your own skin, worrying about how you look, feeling drained, and just not like yourself. Hormone changes, pregnancy, or aging can lead to weight gain and challenges that aren't your fault. That's why I believe so strongly in what we do at Bell Sculpt. I've had a procedure myself, and it transformed more than just my shape. It boosted my energy, metabolism, and confidence. If you're ready to feel like yourself again, Bell Sculpt is here to help. Book your free consultation at bellsculpt.fm.
Hi all, this is Riker Woolsey from Edward Jones bringing you the daily financial market report. The proposed tariffs pose a downside risk to U.S. economic growth as corporations could see profit margins decline due to higher input costs, while households could be pressured by lower inflation-adjusted incomes. In response, U.S. stocks have declined sharply, with the S&P 500 18% off its mid-February all-time high after today's close. However, investors with well-diversified portfolios have fared better. Despite coming under pressure over the past several trading days, international stocks have outperformed U.S. stocks, while U.S. investment-grade bonds are higher by over 3% year-to-date. We believe diversification will remain a key ingredient for investing success over the remainder of 2025. Incorporating allocations to a variety of different asset classes can help smooth periods of volatility and help investors benefit from periods of rotating leadership. As we outlined in our recent weekly market wrap, while recession risks have clearly risen, an economic downturn is not a foregone conclusion. The U.S. economy is entering this period from a position of strength, with real GDP expanding at an above-trend pace over the past 2 years, and household balance sheets remaining healthy. Additionally, last Friday's job report showed that non-farm payrolls grew by a healthy 228,000, well above expectations for a gain of 130,000. We believe investors are best served during this time by sticking with an investment strategy aligned to their financial goals as opposed to reacting to headlines. Today, U.S. equities closed lower. The Dow closed down 349 points, or 0.91% at 37,966. The Nasdaq closed up 15 points, or 0.1% at 15,603. The S&P 500 closed down 12 points, or 0.23% at 5,062. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 4.21%, higher by 0.2 percentage points. This has been Riker Woolsey with today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 580 North Main Street in Logan, Utah. If you would like additional information, please contact me at 435-787-8170. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
John at the Duck Hunter asks, have you ever checked the dryer vent cover on the outside of your home? It could be broken, full of lint, or worse yet, you could have an unwanted guest living in it. John suggests you check your dryer vent today. And if you can't, call John at the Duck Hunter. He'll do a visual inspection, and if needed, run a camera through the dryer vent line to see what's going on in there. For a free consultation, call the Duck Hunter, 770-4813.
We are the Duck Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duck Hunter.
This is Richard Broadbent with Broadbent Financial Services. Starting June 1st, House Bill 23 changes the rules that reward your employees for staying healthy. If your company has 5 to 9 employees, these rewarding health plans will no longer be available. But don't worry, there's still time to act. Get in touch with us before mid-May to ensure your team will be able to enjoy these valuable health incentives. Keep your employees healthy and happy and call 752-7200. Broadbent Financial Services, the voice of choice, your partner in business and health.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Some economics news items to get to here. And a reminder, in hour 2, we'll be hearing from the parents, Cache Valley parents, of a ABC The Bachelor contestant. Alicia will join, parents of Alicia Gar, the contestant, will join us to talk about what the experience was like, what filming reality TV looks like behind the scenes, but also what it was like for her as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to go in. Alicia said that she told them from the start, what her boundaries were, what she was okay with and not. If you've ever seen The Bachelor, it can go pretty close, a little beyond PG-13 sometimes on network television on ABC. But she said she put down some boundaries and some rules for her because of her faith from the start before they even selected her. And she said there was some pushback at times and some disagreements, but they accommodated her every step of the way. It's a really interesting look. If you're a fan of reality TV, you're going to want to be here for hour 2. So Eric Franson of KVNU and CacheValleyDaily.com had to sit down with the Gar family and talk about it, and that's coming up in hour 2 of today's show. Here in hour 1, as I mentioned, a couple of bills related to the economy of the state of Utah. With the governor off in Canada, we'll talk a little bit about some information I got. So coming up on Wednesday's show, we'll be speaking with a representative of the Kempsey Gardner Institute and a representative of the World Trade Center of Utah. They've agreed to come on the show and talk about what the Trump tariffs mean for Utah and why Governor Cox, on last-minute notice with a team of his cabinet, some lawmakers, governors from other states in the West, headed off to Canada over the weekend on what is basically a please still trade with us mission. So I got curious why this would be such a big deal to the governor of Utah. I knew that Canadians make up about 30% of our international travel. I'd read that just recently, but I wasn't aware of how much trade we have with the country. So we'll talk about that with the World Trade Center of Utah representative and the Kempsey Gardner Institute on Wednesday's show. But they sent along some information ahead of time, and this was just mind-blowing, but this is how much in dollars Utah imported from various countries just last year in 2024. This data comes from the World Trade Center of Utah and U.S. Census Bureau and USA Trade Online data combined, and the Kempsey Gardner Institute put it all together, and they sent this along as a sort of a primer for Wednesday's discussion on the show when they'll join us by phone. And this blew me away. But China, for example, the value of tariffed goods Utah imported in 2024 is mind-blowing, honestly. Absolutely mind-blowing. $2.5 trillion. That was the cost of these goods. This is what consumers paid for these. Well, I mean, it's more complicated than that. Even Andy Larson, the Salt Lake Tribune, breaks this down. It's what the purchasers paid before they put it on the shelf to sell to consumers at a markup. But $2.5 trillion, and with the additional 34% tariffs, additional cost after the tariff, it was about $800 million. That's a lot of money. $1.4 trillion from Taiwan, 800,000 or $800 million from Thailand. That surprised me. $300 million in again, value of tariffed goods imported into Utah in 2024. $500 million came from Malaysia. $300 million in imported goods with tariffs attached from Costa Rica. I knew it was big, but I didn't know it was this big. All in all, Utah imported about $21 billion. I'm sorry, I said trillion earlier. That was $2.5 billion from China. But all in all, Utah imported $21.9 billion from other countries in 2024. And about $11.7 billion of that, the Institute says, would have been subjected to the 2024 tariffs. So about half. So all in all, tariffs would have added about $3.1 billion in cost to these products in 2024 had the tariffs announced by Trump last month been in place. So that is a significant amount of money, and that kind of answers the question why the governor headed off to Canada, and I'm guessing might be headed to other countries over the next few months. We'll see what happens. But by the way, that additional price for consumers would definitely outweigh. One example I thought of is income tax cuts by state legislators implemented in this session and over the previous sessions. Total, adding it up that the income tax cut was about $97 million distributed to all Utahns, depending on their income. And again, the additional cost on the goods they bought, Utahns bought in the tariffs, had they been in place in 2024, would have been $3.1 billion. That's a big gap between those two. Exemptions were added for Mexico and Canada, and that's significant for Utah. But the exemptions were not full exemptions. So there's your answer. Why did Governor Cox head off to Canada on a trade mission? That's your answer right there. That's a lot of additional money being paid just to buy the imports, and that's before they're even priced for the shelves for consumers. So, interestingly enough, Andy Larson, the Salt Lake Tribune, breaks some of this down too. But if you want to read another take, but this is just my rough read of what the Kempsey Gardner Institute sent me today ahead of our conversation on Thursday. The Mexico and Canada, Kempsey Gardner Institute says the two countries are the largest exporters to Utah, about $5 billion roughly apiece, Mexico and Canada, and those countries will not be immediately tariffed on products produced in Mexico and Canada other than steel, aluminum, copper, pharmaceuticals, lumber, and automobile tariffs. Automobile tariffs are not new. They go back a ways. And those tariffs were expensive too, about $500 million to Utah alone on 2024 imports. That's a big number. So when the Institute says, I asked them, when could we see? There's a lot of speculation now. Will this lead to trade deals and tariffs getting exempted or even removed by the president? Will Congress, there's now 7 Republicans co-sponsoring a bill to take this authority away from the president to set tariffs, an authority they just recently gave the president, by the way. 7 Republicans have joined Democrats now, all co-sponsoring a bill that has not been scheduled for a vote in the Senate whatsoever, but might, I guess, to take the power away from the president. to set these tariffs. If that doesn't happen, if the tariffs go into place, if there aren't trade agreements that lead to the president rescinding or pausing or terminating the tariffs threatened, I asked the Kempsey Gardner Institute, when can Utah consumers expect to see an impact on prices in general, especially the construction trades, if lumber is going to go up that much? And they said June. Roughly June is when any hit that Utah consumers specifically are going to take, it would be sometime in June when we'd see those prices actually manifest. So, again, we'll have a longer conversation about this on Wednesday with a representative of the Gardner Institute of the U of U, who did the analysis, and the World Trade Center of Utah, who will be kind of providing us a report of the governor's trip to Canada, which he's on right now. So that's coming up on Wednesday's show, but there's a little sneak peek. On the other side, a conservative group, the Utah Eagle Forum, still powerful in Utah County and legislative circles, they are asking lawmakers to convene for a veto override session. Specifically, they want to override the governor's veto of a bill that would allow Utah to pay its vendors in gold. But there's a lot more to the story, and we'll talk about it right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Here's Chad, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
Temperatures are warming and spring is arriving. Here are a couple tips to get your lawn healthy this summer. First, give it a good raking or short mowing to fluff up the dead-looking, matted-down grass, letting the sun bring it out of dormancy. Second, apply a pre-emergent weed control service during the next month to help prevent and control weeds all summer long.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call the Lawn Doctor at 753-LAWN or go to LawnDoctorCashValley.com.
It's pouring rain. It's real dark outside. Your heart starts beating really, really fast. You've never done anything so hard in your life. This is boot camp. This is the real thing now. It's such extreme pain, you don't understand how you can finish. I began to feel that there was no way I was ever going to have my title, U.S. Marine. It takes special inner strength, courage, and desire to do this. I was just thinking, I'm so close. I'm so close. And when I finished, I was like, I'm done. I did it. The moment I will never forget is when this drill instructor that I admire so much comes up to me straight in front of me, put her arm on my shoulder and said, "Good morning, Marine."
PFC Summer Volkman became a Marine. Can you? Visit Marines.com or call 1-800-MARINES. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. As the stock market shows its almost daily disapproval of the White House tariff plan, investors are largely avoiding scooping up discounted shares. Hear why many are choosing to keep their cash on hand. Also, a side-by-side comparison of America's lopsided housing market and why the cost of owning a pet is about to get more expensive. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Coming up in hour 2, KVNU and CashValleyDaily.com's Eric Franson had a chance to sit down with the Gar family. They are the parents located here in Cache Valley of ABC's The Bachelor contestant, Leisha Gar. And they talk about her experience filming the show, competing on the show, behind the scenes of making reality TV when it's made months in advance or weeks in advance and then aired slowly, but also what it was like for her as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, setting some boundaries and do's and wills and won'ts before even being selected as a contestant, and how she says there was pushback, but in the end they accommodated her every step of the way. So that interview coming up in hour 2 of today's show. Wrapping up hour 1, I don't know what will happen with this, but right now no word from legislative leaders on if it's going to happen. But the conservative Eagle Forum of Utah Eagle Forum based in Provo, they're asking the legislature to convene to override the governor's veto of House Bill 306, a bill that would have allowed Utah to set up an internal bank of sorts to pay vendors in gold. The bill was sponsored by Representative Ken Ivory, who, interestingly enough, got a lot of money for his last re-election run from a company called Goldback, and executives Lawrence and Mark Hilton donated about $5,000 to his 2024 campaign, and $1,000 of it, the company itself gave to Ivory. Another $7,500 in June of that same year, according to his campaign financial disclosures. But where's this coming from? Who wants the state to be able to pay? Interestingly enough, the state actually has some gold on hand. The state has purchased about $60 million worth of gold. But where's this coming from? It's coming from a conspiracy theory called the Great Reset. And the theory is that these secretive elites are manipulating global economies to build a globalist regime. And they're doing this by making us all dependent on electronic money, e-money. Now, there are a lot of risks to e-money, but this likely isn't one of them. But that's where it's coming from, for what it's worth. The sponsor told the Salt Lake Tribune during the session that the money to launch the state's gold transaction platform that his bill would create it would be cheap, estimated to be between $150,000 and $200,000. The governor cited that as a reason to veto the bill, saying they did some asking around and they couldn't find a vendor through a competitive bid process to actually do this. The response the governor's office said they got from vendors is, why would anyone do this? And no one was interested. No companies were interested. Ivory responded after the veto was announced, saying that a podcaster here in Utah, Kevin Freeman, who hosts a podcast called Pirate Money, Economic War Room. He wrote a book called Pirate Money. He said he'd pay for it himself. The governor's office said, well, that would actually be illegal. We have to have a competitive bid process if we're going to set up a state-run bank to pay vendors with gold. The governor's office has also said, when they announced the veto, that they pulled vendors with the state and said, is anyone interested in this? And none were. So the governor said his concerns, the pulling of vendors, and the fact they don't think they could find a company to actually run the bank they'd have to set up to pay with gold bars without a non-competitive bid process, the governor vetoed the bill. The Utah Eagle Forum says they want to see an override session happen, and no word from lawmakers yet. We'll see what happens. Coming up next, the parents of ABC contestant Letitia Garr, The Bachelor.